Hexagons have 6 sides. They're a geometric shape. Hexagons also fit together to create something called a tessellation. And a hexagon can be used to design a pattern that has something called turn or rotational symmetry. So we've started with a hexagon, and what we're going to do is we're going to connect points or corners and try to keep our design balanced and symmetrical. When you have a shape like this, it's also called rotational symmetry, which means you can rotate the paper, and that might be an easy way to keep your pattern straightforward. I'm going to start by outlining mine with my Sharpie so that you can see it better on the video. Okay, now you can really see my hexagon. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a straight edge. I don't have to do any measuring, but I'm going to connect corners. So if I connect this corner, I'm also going to do that. See how it created a triangle? And it was that peak, it looks like a mountain, line to line. So now I'm going to turn it. There's another mountain peak. There's the 2 corners. So I rotated my paper. There's my triangle, and now I'm going to look for that next corner that's a peak. Again, I'm going to rotate. There's my mountain, the 2 corners. I'm going to rotate. There's my peak, my 2 corners. And it looks like the last one. So now what I have is something that has rotational symmetry. It's symmetrical if I split it in half. That's called bilateral symmetry. Each side, let's see if I can do this, is the same. But as I rotate it, that continues. So I have 2 sides that are identical there. Every time I turn or rotate it, I keep that symmetry. So that is rotational or turn symmetry. So that's just one design I could make with this. Now I could keep going. I could go across like this. So you can add as many lines as you like for a design, and then I can stop. Let's see, and it went from corner to corner. See how it was 2 peaks? So now I'm going to have to do it this way. Peak to peak. The more lines you draw, the harder it is going to be to keep track of your design. Right, and a peak to peak. And I have a more complex design, but the same thing is happening. I have bilateral symmetry. When I rotate it this way, it's still symmetrical. This one is actually the line of symmetry every time I turn it. So I still have symmetry here. I could add lines there too. You can keep going. And this, initially I was going corners to corners and just keeping it that. But once you have some lines that cross, it gives you a reference point so that I can line up those centers of those X's, and I could create another line that's going to be still symmetrical, still create bilateral symmetry and rotational or turn symmetry. So that's symmetrical, but now I'm also going to have to rotate it and do it along this line. So I'm going to look for those X's to line up my straight line. And if you're an artist who enjoys geometric shapes and mathematical designs, this type of design is something you might enjoy experimenting with. It's also a type of artwork that you see in a lot of different cultures, especially some cultures don't do representational art. They don't draw people and animals. And so patterns and geometric designs, tessellations and things are really common in a lot of cultures. So now you can see I have a very complicated design based on my hexagon that has bilateral symmetry and turn or rotational symmetry. So as you watched, the first one, when I was drawing, I turned it and rotated each time, and it was much easier to keep track of the design, especially as I drew more and more lines, of thinking about that turn that I was making, what I was connecting, and turning it and doing it again, turning it, doing it again. This one I kind of, as I was working in the time-lapse example, this one, I drew things and I kind of drew it and then looked to see how I had to do it again without turning it was a lot harder. So I would recommend thinking about the 2 points that you're connecting and then rotating it and keeping that kind of same motion each time you turn it. On this one, when I drew some of my lines, I lined up my straight edge, which is just a piece of cardboard, and I drew the line, but I didn't go all the way through. So I kind of drew those two. I was focusing on these outside triangles. So the pattern is still symmetrical, still a rotational symmetry. And again, it was much easier if I did the same motion and turned and rotated the paper. Now the next part is I'm going to focus on using color for symmetry, and to keep this simple, because as you can imagine, if I'm focusing on symmetry, then I'm going to have the same pattern in these shapes as they rotate. If you don't want to do that, I mean, you can do more than one design and then you'll have something to compare. You could just do kind of a very colorful design with all different colors. But for this example, I'm going to stick with just two. So I'm going to do my blue and my yellow. So I smoothed out the edges of this design, made it look a little bit different. And when I color this time, I'm gonna have a few different colors available, but what I think I'll do to make it easier to keep my pattern organized is I'm gonna start from the inside here and work my way out. So if I start with green and blue, I'm just gonna alternate. So green, 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 and once I've done that first kind of inner circle, then I can go through and I can look at these and alternate. Maybe I'll jump back and forth. And I think that will help me stay organized by kind of working one row out at a time. I can't wait to see all of your designs.